Welcome, everyone, to the Information's TITV. My name is Akash Pasricha. It is Friday, October 24th. We have got a great show planned for you today. First up, I am talking to the co-founder and CEO of Crusoe about their big funding announcement and their ambitions to take cloud computing into outer space. Then we've got an all-star lineup of reporters coming on to talk about what OpenAI employees are calling the Facebookification of OpenAI. We're also talking about all things robotics. We'll discuss SoftBank's renewed robotic ambitions and how AI and robots can be used to treat cardiovascular diseases. And finally, we're talking to a VC who has just started a new fund about what consumer categories are attractive investments right now. We've got a lot to get to, so let's get right on into things. Data centers have become one of the fastest growing elements of the AI boom, and Crusoe has become one of the most closely watched companies building a business in that arena. The company has today announced it has raised more than $1.3 billion at a valuation north of $10 billion. It has also positioned itself at the center of the government's Stargate initiative alongside big names like OpenAI and Oracle. And this week, the company said it was working to offer GPU capacity from outer space by early 2027. Joining me now is the co-founder and CEO of Crusoe, Chase Lockmiller. Chase, welcome to TITV. It's great to have you.
Amazing. Thanks for having me.
So a big week of news and a big day today as well. I want to start with the space thing, though. So you've partnered with a company called StarCloud. You're sending GPUs into outer space. What exactly is the ambition here? Why are you guys doing this?
Yeah, the StarCloud partnership is one we're certainly excited about. It's a reflection of, number one, our energy first approach to building compute infrastructure. In outer space, there are, we have access to solar that's powered 24/7 at a very, very low cost. And there are certain applications that, need to be, run in outer space. And our belief is that intelligent infrastructure will be everywhere and in everything. And, having access to local inference workloads in space will be a critical part to building out the space economy.
So it's literally, the ambition here is to have a data center floating in outer space. That's the idea, right?
Well, I think early days is really just focused on having a handful of nodes in outer space to serve local workloads, and I think that's kind of one of the key milestones. I don't see in the near term very large Stargate-sized facilities in outer space. I think there's infrastructure that needs to be run locally, and having access to compute in space is an important part to adding intelligence to the space economy.
And some more silly questions here. Let's talk about space debris and cooling. I know it's cold in outer space, but how do you dissipate the heat, and how do you avoid it from knocking into the other satellites?
Yeah, the cooling is actually one of the interesting aspects to this, because people think of space as cold, but it's actually a vacuum, which means that there's no medium in which to sort of thermally transfer the heat. So you actually have to radiate the heat. It's actually a more complex problem than building a data center here on Earth. But the StarCloud team has built out a great radiative energy or radiative cooling solution that we feel like will work well for sort of these initial deployments.
So let's talk about building data centers on Earth then for a minute. You guys are key to the Stargate initiative. How's progress going on Stargate?
Things are going very well. We recently announced the commissioning and going live with sort of the first few phases of the 1.2 gigawatt campus that we've been building in Abilene, Texas. We're really proud of the team in terms of how we've been able to execute. We've had great partners with Oracle and OpenAI at that facility. And today it's running workloads that, are powering the AI economy.
One of the questions I wanted to ask you is, look, things are moving so quickly in this space, and it's not just, the money is flowing in certainly to fund these initiatives. Are you getting any pressure from partners to move even faster at all for an initiative like Stargate?
Of course. Yeah. When you move fast, everybody wants you to move faster. I think it's a reflection of the demand for compute infrastructure. There's a massive scarcity of compute today. It's a very broad-based trend that we're seeing across all of our customers in terms of people don't have enough compute to serve the workloads, the ambitions, whether it's training a new model or serving their own inference workloads for their customers. There's a massive shortage of compute infrastructure to meet the current demands that we're seeing across
And
the AI ecosystem.
what is it like to work with, I'm thinking about Oracle in this equation, because Oracle is, of all the partners that are involved, they are the public company, and they're the stock that the share movement is, it's very up and down depending on any blip of information that comes out. What is it like to work with them as a partner and working with such a big public company like that?
Well, from our standpoint, Oracle's been an incredible partner. They've been super thoughtful, working together, arm in arm, to make this infrastructure project a reality. They've been incredibly supportive and thoughtful in terms of the design, the construction, the build, the financing of all of this to make this project a reality.
And what about your own cloud computing initiatives? It's something that you are working on at Crusoe as well. You obviously are involved in the construction of these data centers. Talk to me about what the ambition is here with your own cloud business, and where you think that's going.
Yeah. So, at Crusoe, we really think of ourselves as an AI factory company, right? So we're building these factories that can produce intelligence for the world and for the economy. And that starts with, the energy and the power and the infrastructure, the data centers, and it runs all the way up through, the managed clusters of GPUs and managed inference workloads to produce intelligent results for end users and really produce value, this like digital labor that's produced from artificial intelligence. And so, we've really built a full stack solution to really help enable the overall economy here. And we've had great partners in sort of making this happen with NVIDIA, with AMD, with a number of other partners throughout the ecosystem to bring this infrastructure to life. In our cloud business, we've seen tremendous growth. Tremendous demand from a lot of leading AI companies like Cursor and Fireworks and Windsurf/Cognition, and we've really helped a lot of these customers grow as their applications have grown in demand and usage.
And how do you see yourself standing out among all the other cloud providers that are popping up now? I mean, it's a really competitive space.
Yeah, the neocloud space is absolutely an incredibly competitive space. I think from our perspective, our goal is to provide scaled solutions reliably at a favorable price performance.
How do you get there?
We've built an incredible team, ranging from the low level or from the low level infrastructure investments we've made in the engineering stack to create reliable solutions across not just the compute, but the storage and high performance networking solutions that are required to meet the needs of a lot of the leading AI players. And then we have a incredible customer success team and a customer support team that's really helped people work through a lot of challenges that are associated with running this infrastructure at scale.
But on the price side, I'm just trying to understand the economics here. I mean, how do you get it to be such that the price is more efficient compared to all these other neo clouds? I mean, are you looking to own these chips ultimately? I mean, are you still leasing them? What do the economics look like?
We do own the chips, right? So
Okay.
we purchase large quantums of GPUs through some of our OEM partners, and we install, we manage, and we operate those clusters of GPUs and integrate them with a lot of our shared services, like our managed storage products, our managed Kubernetes products that really enable customers to run the workloads that they need to serve their own specific workload.
And so, sorry, go ahead, keep going. Keep going.
From a pricing, so we've been able to finance a lot of this through some asset-backed financing solutions that we've previously announced. one with Upper 90, one with Victory Park. But we've been able to sort of scale the infrastructure with asset-backed financing. I think that's been a critical aspect to standing up the infrastructure, is actually having the capital to make it happen.
And on that note, I did just want to ask you about sort of how you think about the level of risk right now in the AI ecosystem. Certainly from your end, if you're owning the chips, they're expensive, and like you said, you talked about ways to finance that. But I mean, how do you think about the level of risk in the AI ecosystem right now, and the level of risk for your company, given that it's so capital intensive to build anything in this space?
Yeah, no, it's a great question, especially when you have a business that has a tremendous amount of CapEx. The way we think about this is really, we are constantly doing demand forecasts in terms of how much compute demand is coming from our customers in the cloud business, and how much infrastructure demand we're seeing from customers on the data center side. Right now, I think it's very broad based, and the demand, like no one has enough compute, no one has enough data center space, no one has enough energy. The capacity for infrastructure is largely saturated right now, and so we're really focused on building more to sort of meet the demands of customers. When we think about GPU purchases, there is kind of some payback math that we go through in terms of making the upfront investment in the CapEx and working with our customers to ensure that they're able to get a great service and high performance with high reliability, and we're able to earn a great return for our investors.
Chase, I want to ask you a quick question before I let you go. Remind me, how many times have you climbed Everest? Is it once or twice?
So I've been on 2 Everest expeditions.
2 Everest expeditions.
Once in
Okay.
2014, and then I summited in 2018. So
Okay. So it strikes me you're not afraid of a lot of things, including heights and climbing mountains. What scares you as you build Crusoe? It's such a hard business. It's a crazy time for AI right now. What keeps you up at night?
Um, I think probably the biggest risk to the business is, or the biggest risk to the ecosystem, I think really is debt. So from our perspective, we try to be very thoughtful about how we take on debt and what our offtake looks like, and we have to have a lot of confidence that number one, we'll be able to pay down those debts through the customers that we have, and the contracts that we have, and the demand that we have, and the services that we provide, and we'll be able to earn a very good return on top of that. If you look at any of the major crises, financial crises that have unfolded over the course of history, many of them involved unresponsible use of leverage and of debt, taking on sort of an irresponsible amount of leverage against certain forecasts, and we just try to be conservative with that, and really thoughtful about who our customers are, and really having a portfolio of large investment grade customers, as well as some of the leading AI startups.
And you mentioned AI demand. I mean, this is something I think about a lot with these businesses, which is that if AI demand starts to plateau at all, or if it doesn't shake out the way that people think it does, what happens to Crusoe's business in that scenario?
Well, I think it's sort of a matter of what the contracts look like, and we have a range of contracts across our business. But when you look at for instance, the biggest capital investments, the biggest CapEx numbers that we have are really at the data center layer for building these gigawatt scale campuses, and in those cases we have long-term offtakes from investment grade customers, right? So these are long-term, very committed revenue streams that we feel will be able to weather any sort of ups and downs that we see in the AI economy and the AI demand landscape. That's something that we've gotten comfortable with as a business, and in our underwriting of a lot of those investments.
Great. Well, Chase, I want to thank you for coming on. That is Chase Lockmiller, the CEO of Crusoe. Okay. OpenAI isn't yet one of the big tech giants, but in some ways, it's looking like it may be where the company is headed. My colleagues today published an in depth look at how many of OpenAI's employees are split on what they call the Facebookification of OpenAI. It's not just about where employees are coming from, it's also where the company's focus is going. Joining me now is a superstar trio of reporters. Stephanie Palazzolo, Aaron Wu, and Callie Huang cover all things AI, Meta, and big tech at large. Welcome to the three of you. It's great to have you here.
Yeah. Gosh, thank you.
Friday energy. I get it. Okay, the weekend's coming. We're almost there, guys. Let's talk about this story that you wrote. Callie, I want to start with you. So let's just look at the numbers here. I mean, how many people who are working at OpenAI right now came from Meta, and how many senior executives also came from the company?
Yeah, so we found that of the people who list OpenAI as their current employer on LinkedIn, about 630 previously worked at Meta. So that's about a fifth of the company. And it's a lot of the company's leaders. Fiji Simo, the CEO of applications, was formerly head of Facebook. The CTO of applications also used to work at Facebook. And if you go through the C-suite, it's a lot of people who had leadership roles at Facebook in the late 2010s, early 2020s.
But people are also going to Meta, right? Because we've written a lot about Meta poaching a lot of this talent.
Yeah, of course. Meta recruited very aggressively from OpenAI this summer.
And is there anything about this that is OpenAI trying to get back at Meta, or maybe is it something about talent at Meta that is really good, or anything like that?
I think I think a lot of this hiring has been happening since before this summer. But there are very few companies that have operated at the scale at which Meta operates at.
Okay.
So, as OpenAI grows up, there are only so many companies to hire from.
So, Aaron, how has that sort of influenced the direction that OpenAI might be going now with not just the company's strategy, but also the company's culture?
Yeah, so we wrote in the story about how there are some processes that employees feel like have been taken from OpenAI. So we talked about Kevin Weil, who wrote this long product memo where he talked about wanting OpenAI to become like a toothbrush product that people use every day. Those are words that are borrowed from Larry Page, who's the CEO of Google. And so there are some people who feel like this borrowing from big tech is giving processes to a company that has been quite chaotic, has grown really, really quickly. And so maybe some of this isn't a bad thing. But there's also a focus on process and bureaucracy in terms like directly responsible individual and like SEV and like things that have been borrowed from big tech companies that for some make them nostalgic for the days of being like a scrappier, smaller startup.
Steph, there was some good detail in the story about the survey that went out. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So earlier this year, there was a survey that was sent out by kind of this employee driven task force that was essentially asking people who had come from big tech backgrounds whether they felt like the culture at OpenAI was becoming too much like a big tech company, and what they were meant to kind of do about that. So it's interesting because actually originally the survey was kind of framed as the Facebookification or the Meta-fication of OpenAI, and later was kind of broadened to include just broader big tech companies. But it really shows the kind of influence that Meta and Facebook has been having on OpenAI and the mind share that big tech company specifically has had kind of within this group of OpenAI employees.
And so this is actually a survey that employees asked to have answered?
Yeah, so at OpenAI, they sometimes set up these kind of task forces, which go after these big questions that the company might be wondering about, like, are we becoming too much like Meta, for instance? And so, yeah, these are kind of employee-driven surveys and task forces.
Well, Callie, this is kind of an interesting time for a survey like this to go out, because then you look at the products and you look at Sora, for example, and OpenAI now moving into the social media realm. It's not just culture. It's sort of taking after Meta a little bit in terms of business model too, right? I wonder how employees feel about that.
Yeah, I mean, some people, frankly, we found are not so happy about it. They've expressed doubts that Sora is the right direction for OpenAI. They're worried about OpenAI's ability to handle these problems that have long plagued social media companies like Meta. So content moderation, for example. And in the lead up to Sora's release, Sam Altman tried to ease some of those anxieties. He told employees, Sora doesn't necessarily further OpenAI's goal of superintelligence, but in a future with superintelligence, people are still going to want fun, lighthearted content. And Meta has actually had a very similar recruiting pitch to researchers.
Steph, I kind of want to come back to you because I sort of think about the strategy that Sam Altman has sort of built for the company, and it very much is a bit of the spaghetti strategy right now, where they're trying a lot of different things at once. Is this kind of inevitable as a company grows up in your mind? I mean, surely there must be people at the company who are actually saying, well, yeah, I mean, the goal is to be as big as Facebook. We have to go through this transformation.
Yeah, I mean, I think in some ways, like OpenAI is obviously a company that wants to make a profit someday, and right now it's on track to burn $115 billion from 2025 to 2029. So it's obviously going to have to come out with products that are making money to make a dent in that cash burn. So I think in some ways people think that it is kind of just a part of growing up and a part of being a big tech company, but at the same time, I think it's just strange, I think, to see, Sam Altman talk about AI that can cure cancer, that can fix the education system. And then at the same time, you see products like Sora coming out, which are, obviously just very similar to kind of like social media companies we've seen in the past, things like TikTok. And we've also seen at the same time, even Sam change his viewpoints on things like ads, going from saying that he finds ads uniquely unsettling to saying that there are types of ads that he is interested in having at OpenAI.
Aaron, I kind of want to take a step back here and just talk a little bit about Sam Altman as a leader. Mark Zuckerberg at one point was in his dorm room, and he's obviously grown the company into this big juggernaut. OpenAI right now they're at about 3,000 employees, I think is what we said in the story. And so they still have a ways to go to be as big as Meta. But I mean, help just riff with me here a little bit on the parallels between, Sam Altman as a leader, Mark Zuckerberg's trajectory. Do people sort of see him as the next Mark Zuckerberg? Do they sort of hope that he might avoid some of the challenges that Zuckerberg had to go through along the way? What's people's thinking around that?
Yeah, so I've been thinking about this for the past couple of years. There's like a message from me in Slack in like 2023 where I'm like, Sam Altman is going to be the Mark Zuckerberg of this generation of technology. And I've been kind of wagering that Sam Altman has also been thinking very specifically about this. And I think a lot of what he's done has been trying to position himself, maybe like to try to position himself differently from Mark Zuckerberg. Like one of the things about Sam Altman is for a long time, he was very accessible to the media. Like he's been around forever. Like in the lead up to this, I was rereading an essay that our founder, Jessica Lessman, wrote about like knowing him since he was the kid in the 2000s, like working on Looped, his first basically failed startup. So I think he's been around forever and he's seen what's happened with Mark Zuckerberg. And I think for a long time, he was trying to position himself as very accessible, very sober. He cares about like the harms this technology could have. Like a couple of years ago, he was on the Hill doing this whole big listening tour where he was talking about the kinds of AI regulation he wanted, like meeting with Congress. So I think for a long time, he was trying to position himself as almost, if anything, like the anti-Mark Zuckerberg. I think as the company has gotten bigger, as it's harder to do the like, shucks, like boy wonder thing, like I think it works less well, but I think it's a really interesting parallel that will be worth continuing to pay attention to.
Great. Well, Steph, Callie, and Aaron, I want to thank you for joining us. It was a great story. It's on our website right now. And with that, we're going to move to our next segment. SoftBank is renewing its robot ambitions, even as prior efforts over the past decade have faced hurdles. This week, the information reported that the company discussed a $900 million acquisition of Agility Robotics, a 10-year-old startup led by a former Microsoft executive. I want to play a conversation I had with our very own Rocket Drew about why that deal fell through. Here is that conversation. Hey, Rocket, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing good. How about you, Akash?
Doing good. Okay, so SoftBank is doing robots. I guess it's been doing it for a while. I haven't been paying attention to it, but tell us about this company that they were talking about buying.
Yeah, that's right. So SoftBank has been in the robotics game for a long time, but what we're reporting is that SoftBank and Agility Robotics held talks about a possible acquisition late last year, and a price that was discussed in that meeting was at least $900 million for Agility. SoftBank has been interested in robotics for a long time, but AI is igniting a new wave of interest in robotics for many investors, and SoftBank seems to be no exception.
And why didn't the deal go through?
Well, Agility went on to raise a new funding round. So Agility is currently raising at least 300 million. We reported $400 million in a funding round that would value the company at a $1.75 billion
Huh.
valuation before the money.
So basically almost twice what SoftBank was going to buy it at. And Rocket, we're going to keep going, but you can't nod on TV. You got to keep going with it. We're going to keep it going. So
I'm,
look,
I'm being careful about the numbers, Akash.
okay, I understand. Okay, look, I do want to talk about SoftBank's robotics strategies, though broadly. So you had a great table in the story that everyone should check out. I mean, tell us about some of the other investments that SoftBank has made in this category, and whether or not they've panned out to be successful. It's still quite early for robotics.
It is very early. I think the main takeaway is that there have been a number of investments from SoftBank. I mean, the table that we put together has more than 10 robotics companies, and we had to be pretty sparing about which ones we included because it was a long list. So, SoftBank's robotics efforts took off in a major way, call it 10 years ago. They came up with this robot called Pepper that was sort of meant to be a robot companion. It was meant to be emotional, and it became the talk of the town. I mean, it appeared with Masayoshi Son on stage. It appeared at Silicon Valley events. It greeted people as they walked into cell phone stores, as they walked into office lobbies. So Pepper was kind of the poster child of SoftBank Robotics. And SoftBank also owned Boston Dynamics, the longtime robotics maker. Uh, SoftBank ended up letting go of 80% of its stake in Boston Dynamics, but still holds on to 20%. But there were a number of other robotics bets that didn't pan out as well, like the startup Zoom Pizza, which was intended to be a robotic pizza delivery startup, basically. And that company ended up going under. So there were some bets that didn't pan out early on.
So you made this point in the story. You talked about how SoftBank's approach to robotics was sort of similar to its approach with data centers. What did you mean by that?
Yeah, that's right. When I talked to analysts for this story, they pointed out that Masayoshi-san is really into infrastructure. I mean, he's getting into all aspects of AI, building models, data centers, chips to run the models, and physical AI is a part of that picture. But similar to how Masa is interested in the infrastructure for developing and running AI models, it would be natural for him to be interested in the infrastructure to develop robots as well. And in this case, that's physical infrastructure. It's robots to build other robots, potentially. So, uh, SoftBank recently decided to acquire ABB Robotics. It's the robotics division of ABB Group, which is this industrial giant. It's a Swiss company. And that's mostly industrial robots. It's like robot arms, it's rolling bases to move boxes and pallets around in warehouses. But that kind of equipment, that machinery, could potentially be useful for the robotics efforts that SoftBank already has going, and also as infrastructure to develop robots in the future.
Tommy, I want to ask you about this debate here, whether or not humanoids are the best form factor to do industrial work. We were talking before the show, and you said to me, you said, this is a debate that has been raging for many years now. Look, I don't know about what the different sides of this debate are. So fill us in. Where do people lie on this issue?
Oh boy, yeah. I'm glad to hear. It sounds like you haven't gone down the many Reddit rabbit holes
No,
that this topic
not the robot Reddit rabbit holes.
right. Some other ones for sure, but it's pretty niche. But it has been litigated for a long time in lots of online forums. I mean, the question is, if you are going to build a robot, is a robot that looks like a human the best form factor? A robot that has two hands with five-fingered hands and walks on two legs, is that the best you can do? And some people think that, yes, it would be very useful to have humanoid robots. You could sort of plug them in right into the existing work environment. You could put them in a factory, you could put them in a warehouse, and they could do the exact kind of work that we have humans doing right now. They're very general purpose. You know, you can move some boxes over there for an hour, and then you can move to a different part of the warehouse, and you can do a different kind of task for your next hour. You couldn't say the same for, say, a robot dog. Maybe a robot dog is great for inspecting the facility, but you're not going to give it every single task in the building. So that's what the humanoid proponents would say. They're very general purpose, and we can begin deploying them right away because the environments are built for people. I mean, we've built these warehouses and factories around us. Doorknobs are at the right height. Shelves are at the right height. We have stairs that are the right size for us to walk up and down.
Hmm.
People who are more skeptical of robots would
I was
say,
going to say, what's the, yeah, tell me about the other side now.
yeah. I mean, when you think about how humans get work done, we tend to use tools, right? If you want to install something, you pick up a drill. If you want to move things around, you get in a forklift. Like, why not just take those equipment that's more sort of specialized form factors and then make that autonomous? You can have self-driving forklifts. You could have self-drilling components. You can have robotic arms instead. You get a more specialized hardware.
Yeah.
And that could potentially be stronger than humanoids. It could be faster.
Couldn't it be cheaper too? Wouldn't it be cheaper?
It could be cheaper, yeah. Humanoids are typically thought of as pretty expensive. I mean, there are non-humanoid robots as well that can run up a serious bill for you, but it could potentially be cheaper.
Great. Well, Rocket, I appreciate you coming on. It certainly is a fascinating deal. And like I said, I was not aware that SoftBank had made so many different efforts in the robotics space. So we appreciate you coming on to explain it. That is Rocket Drew, our AI and robotics reporter here at The Information.
Thanks so much, Akash.
Okay. We've talked on this show about how wearables can help track our health, and we've also talked about how AI can make doctors work smarter. Now, a company called Remedy Robotics is taking it a step further, using the technology to help treat medical emergencies like strokes, heart attacks, and other cardiovascular diseases. Recently, the company achieved a critical milestone, completing the world's first fully remote neurointerventional procedure. I want to bring on David Bell, co-founder and CEO at Remedy Robotics, to tell us more about all of his company's ambitions. David, welcome to the show. It's great to have you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
So tell us about the problem that you're solving and then the solution that you've built here at Remedy.
Yes, of course. So at Remedy, we're solving two main problems. So one of them is kind of the high complication rates in endovascular surgery. The main problem, though, that we're solving is the lack of access to care that people have around the world for time-critical cardiovascular conditions like stroke, heart attack, traumatic bleeding. All of these conditions are super time-critical, but they're treated by specialists that tend to be concentrated in a very few hospitals, right? So that means that a large part of the world has no access to this specialist care. So what we're doing is we've built a robot, a bunch of consumable tools, and a whole load of software that allows a surgeon to roll out of bed at 2 a.m. in their pajamas and treat pretty much anyone remotely around the world who's suffering from one of these cardiovascular conditions immediately.
And so you've built. I tried to find photos online. I couldn't quite find photos. I don't know if that's by design or, but it's a literal robot. I mean, how big is this thing?
It's a literal robot. It's relatively long, but it's quite light.
Okay. What does it look like? Like, just explain it to us.
Yes, of course. It's quite long. It's quite light. It controls these things called catheters that are long, floppy tubes and guide wires. And basically, the robot's job is to snake these long, floppy tubes up through your blood vessels into your head or into your heart and treat conditions, right? So basically, the robot itself is quite simple, but it's controlling these long, floppy tools that really are kind of get you to where you need to go within the blood vessels and then help you treat whatever condition the patient's suffering from.
And so do you like stand it next to the patient's bedside on a table and then the wires go in? Is that the idea?
So the patient is lying on their back on a table in what's called a cath lab, right? And the robot is almost over the patient's legs and groin.
Okay.
And then it kind of feeds tools into the groin or into the arm from that angle.
Got it. And so these are incisions. You don't actually have to open the body the way you might normally have to?
Yeah, so correct. So remarkably, this is not conventional surgery like people would think of. It's called endovascular surgery, which means it's through really like a pinprick in your groin or in your arm. And then basically we put like a tube, which is like a conduit into the blood vessels, right? And then we snake these long, thin tubes through them. So there's no cut, there's no knife.
Right, and I imagine, I mean, this seems to be the future of, less invasive, I guess, not having to open the patient to treat a heart attack, for example. I mean, that's or to perform heart surgery, I should say. That seems to be, that would be great for recovery time, I'm sure.
Yes, 100%. Yeah, I mean, it is the standard of care for nearly all cardiovascular disease now, right? So the best treatment for most conditions is no longer kind of a knife. It is this minimally invasive treatment for heart disease, for stroke, and also diseases of the blood vessels anywhere in the body, right? The problem is that less than 3% of the world, especially for something like stroke, has access to this treatment.
So tell us about sort of the business model here. The company is still developing the technology. It's only the one robot you have, right? I don't know if do you have multiple.
Yeah, it's a good question. We have multiple
Okay.
iterations. We're approaching what's called a design freeze. So really, a lot of the hard work is done.
Okay.
Like I mentioned before, we build a robot, which is a relatively simple bit of hardware. We build single-use tools that are used you use one per patient, and then we build a bunch of software. And the business model really, part of accessibility is affordability, is to be able to sell the robot for relatively cheap cost, and then to make money from our single-use consumable tools and our software, right? So basically get the robot into as many hospitals, as many cath labs as possible, and us start making money as hospitals make money for treating these patients.
How much does it cost to make one of the robots?
The cost of goods of the robot at the moment is about $50,000.
50,000, and is the goal to have this covered by insurance in the long run? These operations.
Yeah, so the goal certainly is, and it is currently covered by insurance. The problem for a lot of these hospitals that can't do these procedures is they're missing out on being paid for them, right? So by us equipping them with our robot, they will be able to do these procedures. These procedures are profitable, right? And so as we make money, they make money as well.
But this is kind of interesting because on this show, we've had discussions about, hey, will robots perform surgeries in the future? And this is still very much the doctor is in the loop here. I mean, it's being controlled in some cases remotely by a person, right? And so we're not really at the point here where robots are. You're shaking your head. Am I misunderstanding?
No, you're 100% right. Our goal is not to replace the surgeon. And that's something that people say often, but that's not really where the value is here, right? Our goal is to kind of do better than the surgeon, and also to be in places that the surgeon isn't, right? So it always helps us to have a surgeon behind the screen, right? Even though we might be performing variable levels of autonomy, right? We're never going to be doing the whole thing and have no surgeon watching the case at all. There's nothing in that for us, right? We may be doing parts of the case autonomously. We may be doing things in the background to make sure it's safe, but it's highly unlikely we will ever cut the surgeon out of the loop.
And tell us timeline-wise, where will the company be 2 years from now? Do you have a timeline insofar as, hey, we want this to be operating in 100 hospitals around America, around the world?
Yes. Yeah, good question. So it can be a little bit slow, medtech. We are about to start a trial for FDA approval and then start commercializing. So in 2 years' time, we hope to have sold at least 20 or 30 robots and then start ramping up from there.
Great. Well, David, I want to thank you for joining us. It is a fascinating product and a fascinating company. And with that, I would like to move to our next segment. There's a new player in venture capital betting on the next wave of consumer innovation. Vanessa Larco is co-founder and partner at Premise, a new venture fund backing consumer startups. I'm excited for a conversation with her about what she's focused on. Vanessa, welcome to the show. It's great to have you.
Thanks for having me. It's good to be here.
So tell us about Premise.
Can't tell you a whole lot yet, but we have started this year.
It's the name. You can tell us that's the name.
It's a name. Look, we're looking for founders who are technical, but have an eye for consumer behavior change. And I think that's going to be a bit different than the last generation of founders that were really successful in the mobile era. But I think that we're on the cusp of a new wave of innovation. I mean, we see it. We definitely in Silicon Valley, we feel it. But I think this new wave can be as big as the mobile wave, if not bigger.
Okay, and so behavior changes. Let's go predictions. I mean, what are your predictions about how consumers' behaviors will change in the AI era?
Okay, so I think in the mobile era, We were fascinated of having internet in our pocket. It was this magical thing. You could book a restaurant reservation on your phone. You didn't have to call anyone, right? You could book a flight on your phone. You didn't have to go home to your computer to book a flight. And we got very excited about that. It's been it's been a decade and a half, almost 2 decades since that magic happened. Now we're all used to it. And now we look back and we're like, oh my gosh, I have to book a trip. I have to go to this app to book a flight, this app to book dinner, and it's a DIY. You construct your whole itinerary piece by piece across all these different applications. Look, I think with AI, that's going to change, right? We don't need to DIY it anymore. We can have that concierge-like experience where you can say, this is what I want to do. These are the things I'm interested in. Here's my budget. What do you suggest, right? Like we used to talk to a person about it before the mobile app day. And so I think we're going to go into this era of less DIY, more concierge. You say what outcome you want. The recommendations are going to be there for you.
And you don't think you don't think that OpenAI is going to end up having a hand in literally everything? I mean, this is the question for so many consumer startups: is OpenAI, like we were just talking about the show? I mean, they are everywhere right now. Their products are. I know there's a cohesive strategy here. I know that they have Fujifilm leaving all of the applications, but there are so many applications. Oh my God.
Yeah, look, everyone says this with every tech wave. I remember when AWS was on fire and everybody was building on top of AWS. One, there were critics that were like, oh, it's so easy to build a startup today. It's basically, I didn't call it AWS wrapper, but that was the gist, right? Like you just build an app with AWS handling your infrastructure. That's not a real company. And then we say the same thing with GPT wrappers, right? And then we also said like Amazon's just going to build everything. There's going to be no infra companies. Like what's the point of a database? They'll have that in there. What's the point of this auth product? They'll have that in there. And they did. They launched all these things. Some took off and were great. Some did not. And these companies persisted, and you had Mongo and Elastic and all these like big outcomes that Amazon tried to compete with. Same thing happened with Google back in the 2000s. They built everything. A Craigslist competitor, a Facebook competitor, a Expedia competitor, like all these different, they built everything. Didn't prevent these other companies from getting big. Some of their products were failures and they shut them down. I think OpenAI will do the same thing. They will try to do everything. Some will work and will take off. Others will not. And maybe they'll be like a sub feature in something else, or maybe they just flop altogether and they kill it. But I don't think one company is always going to excel in building everything and knock it out of the park. And then on top of that, I don't think OpenAI is going to build any what I'm calling like real world connectors. So think like Airbnb. They're, lets you book a vacation home, but they end up managing homes and cleaners and property managers, and there's physical assets, right? Same thing with Instacart and DoorDash. There's drivers and they're picking things off the shelf. I don't think OpenAI is going to want to manage drivers and cars and homes and restaurants
Fleets and stuff like that.
They're going to want to layer over the top of all of that.
But they are doing wearables. I mean, they have a device that they're working on. As far as we know, we don't have too much detail on it, but we know that Jony Ive is there now. How much faith do you, or how not faith that you? I was going to say how much faith do you have that actually succeeds? But what is your take on whether or not that'll actually pan out well?
I think there's going to be room for new hardware. I'm actually I don't invest a ton in hardware. I used to work at Xbox. I have some like real trauma there, but I love hardware.
Why? Okay, that's a different story. Keep going.
It's a different story for another day. But I do think hardware is interesting. I think AI is going to open up new types of hardware. And I think it's going to be all around voice interface. I think it's going to be around actually not needing the screen. I mean, I have 2 pair of Meta Ray-Bans. I love them. It's cut my usage of screen time by 50% on the weekends, which feels so liberating. And I'm like, if they had more voice apps, I could do so much more without picking up my phone. And so I think that's the direction AI hardware is going. There's a huge white space for it. No one's really dominating. The Meta glasses are great. Could they be better? 1,000%. Shoving a screen on them, way worse. I don't think that's the answer. I think just making the voice really, really magical, as if you're talking to a person that's next to you, who you're delegating things to or asking questions to, is the right answer. And if OpenAI can nail that, I think they're going to be way ahead of the pack.
Great. Well, Vanessa, I want to thank you for coming on. I'm excited to see what the firm invests in. And with that, we are going to end it for the week, folks. Before we end the show, I want to tell you about some exciting events happening next week. TITV will be on the ground at Adobe Max in Los Angeles. I'll chat with some key Adobe executives and partners about AI and creativity on Tuesday, October 28th. The day after that, you don't want to miss the Information's WTF Summit, aka Women in Tech, Media, and Finance. The Information's Natasha Mascarenas will host a very special edition of TITV from WTF in Napa Valley on Wednesday, October 29th. We are all very excited for that show. That does it for today's show. A reminder, we are on this stream Monday through Friday at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. I want to thank Amazon Web Services, who is our presenting sponsor for this production. And I want to thank you for tuning in. We really do appreciate your viewership. I am already excited for our next show next week. Have a great weekend. Bye-bye for now.